Lesson 4 is the root function and transformations. The root function is f at x equals the square root of x. This here is the base graph of the root function. All the y values are the square root of the x values. So now we move on to a summary of the root transformations. This equation does not include all transformations. So f at x equals af square root of x minus d plus c. In this equation, a represents vertical stretches or compressions, d represents horizontal shifts, and c represents vertical shifts. Now remember, anything inside the bracket or under the square root takes the opposite sign. So for example, if this was x minus 3, you would move to the right 3. Now we're going to move on to an example. So we have to graph the function and state the domain and range. So our function is h at x equals the square root of x plus 5 minus 3. So we have to start by putting in our base values. So 0, 1, 4, and 9. And on this side it's 0, 1, 2, and 3. So now we have to look at our function and determine which transformations have been made to the functions and how it affects the x and y values. So under the square root we have x plus 5, and anything under the square root affects the x. So we take the opposite value, which would be negative 5, so we do x minus 5. And now we have to subtract 5 from all of the x values. And we have negative 5, negative 4, negative 1, and 4. Now we have this negative 3 left, and this is affecting the y values. So now we have to make that change to all of the y values. So we have negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, and 0. So now we have to graph this function. I've already graphed it here. You have to just plot the points. So you'd plot it at negative 5 and negative 3 and continue plotting the points onwards. So now we're going to look at the domain and range. You have to find the domain and range of this graph. So looking at this graph, we know that the x values can never be less than negative 5 because the graph continues this way. So our domain for this graph is x is an element of all real numbers such that x is greater than or equal to negative 5. And now, looking at this graph, we have to figure out our range. So our y values can never go lower than negative 3. They always have to be higher than negative 3. So for our range, we write y is an element of all real numbers such that y is greater than or equal to negative 3.